What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to the Fierce Framework podcast, where we talk about becoming fierce through messy action, baby steps, and cultivating confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm a business coach with a passion to see women breaking out of the mold society tells us we're supposed to fit into and to start living life more on our own terms. I believe the world benefits when women are living lives that we're lit up about and we're pursuing a purpose that makes us feel fulfilled. My goal with this podcast is to share inspiration, stories of other entrepreneurs just like you, and practical tools and tips to help you become fierce in your business. If that sounds good to you, you're going to love this episode. Let's get down to it. What's up, gorgeous? I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to another episode of the Fierce Framework. So, today I want to talk about something that actually really kind of pisses me off. I know I try to be like love and light on here, but there's been something that it super bothers me. And it's one of those things where like people compliment you, but it's a backhanded compliment type thing. And it's basically when people are like, oh my gosh, you're so brave, you're so confident, like I could never do that. And like I understand that it's a compliment. Like I'm autistic, not stupid. But like what's frustrating to me is I don't want to be like admired. I don't want you to think I'm special. I want you to go do what you want to do. Like I would be honored if like someone was inspired to go do something because they saw me doing XYZ. Like that's the goal, like that's the dream, right? But when it's like, "Oh, you're so amazing, I can never." I actually hate that because yes, you could. You absolutely could and like you should like do it. Do the thing, right? And I think one of the like huge misconceptions that's so common that is so frustrating because it's so limiting is the assumption that because someone like did something, it must be easier for them than it would be for me. Because it's like, oh, an author, right? Like somebody who wrote their book, like, oh, I wish I could write a book, but like it's just so hard. And so you tell yourself that you can't. You're like, I can never write a book. And then you see someone, maybe an acquaintance or a friend, you're like, wait, I know your story. I know where you came from. I know how you grew up. Like, we're not that different. And you wrote a book, but I can't write a book. So it must be easier for you. Like, it must have somehow been easier for you because you did it and I can't. And like, that's not true. For the most part. I always have to caveat, right? Like, yes, there are different privileges and like people come from different places, but I think we put too much of an assumption that like there's this some like magical intrinsic quality where it was easier for someone than it is for you. And that is not necessarily true. Like, yes, we're all on different paths. We all have different gifts and strengths and supports and privileges. Absolutely. Those are not the things I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the assumption that somebody has some magic internal thing that makes it easier for them to do the thing you want to do than it is for you to do it because you've convinced yourself that you can never. And so when you see them doing it and you realize like how similar their story is, and you're like comparing and you're like, we're not that different. How come you can do this and I can't? And so then the justification is it must be easy for you. It must have been easier for you. Somehow it must be easy, and that's how you did it because I couldn't do that. So that's how you did it. It's somehow magically easier. No. No. Um, sorry, I'm like so passionate about this. It bothers me so much, in case you can't tell. Um, no. And you could do it. Like that's the whole thing. And like that's what gets me so fired up because the whole reason I branched out and like wanted to do my own thing is to like empower and encourage and support and somehow bolster women to like do the things that we want to do because there's so many real barriers that we already have to deal with. I'm so tired of the additional internal barriers that we put in our own place and we decide I can't do that. And then we see someone very similar to us doing the thing we've been telling ourselves our whole lives we can't do and we're like, well, we justify it, right? Well, it must have been easy for her. What if it wasn't easy? What if it was just as hard for her as it is for you and she did it anyway? What then? What is that? What do you call that? What if it was just as difficult and challenging and scary for her as it is for you, but she did it anyway? It's not easy. Just because she did it, that doesn't mean it must have been easy for her. It doesn't mean it was easy. Okay, let me stop yelling. I love you. You're doing so great. Okay, so like let me take a step back. The frustration is the problem I want to talk about today is like the assumption that because someone did something hard, that it must not have been hard, right? And then kind of paralleled with that is our own internal like the ways we hold ourselves back and then we assume like it must have been easy for you because it would be hard for me. It would be so hard for me that I'm choosing not to do that. It would be so hard for me that I'm telling myself it's impossible. So when you do that same thing, well, I've already decided that's impossible. So then it must be different for you. It must be easier for you. Right. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about. And one of the like linchpin, like clinchers here that like I really want to make sure is clear is that because it's not easier for the people who do it. Like when you look at someone who did what they want to do, or especially like in light of what you want to do, right? If you see someone who's like living your dream, the rationalization of, oh, it must have been easy for them is not sound. It is not correct. If there's some situation where you have facts and they have privilege and privileges that you don't have and support, okay, there's factors, right? But the general assumption where we go, okay, well, it must have been easy for you then. Not necessarily. People do hard things. Look at your life. You do hard things all the time. And I would even challenge you too, like, is there something that you overcame that you didn't think you were going to? Or is there a situation that you made it through where you're like, I'm not gonna make it, bro? Like this is it. This is where my story ends. Like it's over. Like there's no way I'm coming back from this. But you fucking did, because you're here. So you've already done the impossible. Okay? It's not because it was easy for her, it's because she did it anyway. And you know what that means? You can do it anyway. You can do the hard things. You can work through the shit. You can decide to go and chase your dreams scared. You can do it anyway. There's not some like magical quality that the people who are making progress towards their goals, the people who are working towards their dreams, they don't have some magical quality that you don't have. Y'all are made up of the same stuffs. You're not missing the characteristic that allows you to go do the things you want to do. You're not missing that. There's not successful people don't magically have something that you don't have. You've got all that same stuff. And like really sit with it and think like how many things have you done that are already hard, that are maybe impossible, that you've actually done, that you've situations that you've made it through. You do hard shit and you can do this too. Oh, why am I yelling? Okay. And I think like so I get a little in my feels, which is why I'm so passionate about it. But I think that's one of the frustrating things when people like compliment me on like I don't know. It's everything from like wearing a two-piece to like going on trips alone, right? To like I don't know, just random things and it's like okay. Um I think it's frustrating because it's like when you assume it's easy for me, you're kind of discounting all the work I did to get here. Like, I had to work through a lot of crap, and I still deal with a lot of self-doubt and like just a shame from society. Like, I'm dealing with a lot of crap, dude, but I'm dealing with it, right? So when you assume that it's easy for someone to do the things they do, you kind of take that away from them. And like, it's okay because, like, people don't, you don't necessarily know somebody's story, and there's a certain like level of ignorance that's just fine. But it's like, if you really think about it and you're like really trying to compliment somebody, right? Like, you're kind of taking away their grit, and like you're not acknowledging the work that they've put in. It's like, oh, I'm assuming it was easy. So then why are you complimenting me? Like, so you're basically saying like, good for you. I don't think you really accomplished anything. I'm just jealous. And you're like, that's fine. Like, that's fine. And I'm laughing about it, but because I want to use kind of the extreme to explain to help you like see why this makes no sense, right? When you kind of like, it must be so easy for you. I could never do that. It's like, actually, you could. If you did the same internal work I did and you dealt with the bullshit and you like dealt with your self-doubt and you dealt with your insecurity, you actually could. Like, so please, especially me, this is like what I'm passionate about. Please don't tell me you could never like XYZ, because you could. Like, whenever you tell me like, oh, I could never do that, it's so defeating because like my mission is to help you be empowered to do that, like whatever it is you want to do. So, okay, now we're on a tangent of like my preferences for being complimented. But my point is, like, I think a lot of the time, like, there's this assumption that there's either some like intrinsic characteristic that they have that you don't have. And so it's hard for you. It must be easy for them because they're doing it and you're not. So there's that. We assume there's some like magical quality. And then B, I think a lot of the time we assume what they're feeling or how they're not feeling, right? And so we're projecting a lot of our own situations like onto them, right? Like, oh, if I didn't feel confident, then I wouldn't wear the two piece. If I didn't feel confident, I wouldn't get up in front of that room of people and speak. If I didn't feel confident, I wouldn't go ahead and tell the server my order was wrong. Like, and that's not true. So often, especially, and let me take a step back with confidence. So, confidence is the result of doing those things. You don't start confident before you take action. And I've done tons of like podcasts and stuff, like tons of my content is about this. Um, so I'm not gonna get too much into it, but it's like the feeling didn't come first. Okay. When you see the girl solo traveling, the feeling of confidence and safety and being comfortable in her own skin and in her own company, like those feelings didn't necessarily come before she took that trip. Okay. So like, for example, with my trip to Belize in April, right? Like, I have been on solo trips by myself and I've been scared and it's been awkward and like, and so still I've done it before, and still there were times on this trip when I was doing something by myself because I showed up to that country alone, and I felt awkward. I felt like a loser. I felt like I was in the way. I was like, people are judging me for being alone. And then anytime I like hang out with a friend who was a guy, it was like, or an acquaintance, obviously, but it was like, oh, people are gonna assume I'm like a slut, or like I came here to sleep around, or like whatever. Like, I dealt with all these things. And then the other things as well of like, I'm not doing anything productive. Like, I mostly lounged around, like I wrote, I read, I stared at the ocean for hours. I didn't do hardly anything. I was there for 3 weeks and I did like, I think two excursions, maybe three. So it's not even like my days were packed with like exploring the country. And there's tons to explore. That's not why I was there. I was just like being, okay? And so the fact that someone is doing that doesn't mean that they have all these good feelings. Like there's so much crap that we're working through while we're chasing the dream, like while we're doing those things, right? When you think of learning anything, right? If you're driving a stick shift, right? You can't necessarily assume that it's easy for the person because they're doing it. It might be their first time and it might be really freaking hard and confusing and infuriating, but the difference is not that it's easy for them. The difference is that they're doing it anyway. And so I want to encourage you and I want you to feel empowered that you don't have to have some magic intrinsic thing that makes things easy for you. And you don't have to feel confident or feel not scared or feel like you don't have to feel any kind of, you can be terrified and just go ahead and decide that you're doing it anyway. Like you don't have to feel the way you're picturing someone else is feeling. Okay. Along these same lines, while I'm ranting, right? Um, I used to work in an office and somebody like the sweetest compliment. She was like, "You're so confident, like, um, you just like it seems like you just don't give a crap about like what anybody thinks, and like I just admire how confident you are." And I was like, I don't know. Like, do I tell her? Like, who's gonna tell her? Because I was like, I don't, thank you. But at like in that moment, in that season of my life, like I've been working on insecurities for a long time. Like in that season of my life, I was pretty insecure. Like I was dealing with a lot of insecurities. I was not feeling confident. I was embodying confidence. I was portraying confidence. I was masking confidence. I was appearing as if I were confident. Very much cared what people thought. I was very concerned about how what people thought about me was going to impact my job, my future at that company. Like, I was very concerned with what people thought. And so it was just interesting to see, like, yes, I was exuding confidence intentionally, but then to see someone like notice that confidence and then assume that I didn't care what anybody else thought, like, helped me realize, like, we project these ideas onto people. And now, like, now that I kind of am aware of that, I see it over and over and over again. And I do this too, right? Like, you notice how when someone is doing something, you start to like ascribe characteristics to them because it's like a justification. And there's different reasons why we do this, but it's also part of it is a justification of like, well, they must not care what people think because they're doing that. I care what people think, and therefore I don't do that. So they must not care. Not necessarily true. They might very much care what people think, and they might be doing it anyway. And so the good news is, right, if we're playing the comparison game, you also can go ahead and do the things you want to do, regardless of what people think. Because it's not about not caring what other people think, it's about caring more about what you need to do. That's a whole separate side note. So there's 3 points that I want to like encourage us, and I hope these empower you to go ahead and do the things like now that hopefully, right, we're realizing like it's not necessarily easier for them than it is for you. They don't have some like magic trait that you don't have, and you don't have to feel a certain way before you do it. Okay? So you can go ahead and do it scared. Like you just be scared and you just do it anyway. You know, it's like when it's easier to speak up for someone else than for you. You know, maybe the waiter got your order wrong and you don't care. Like it's, and there's a lot of reasons for that too, people pleasing, whatever. But if we're just focusing on like the insecurity or like worried about bothering people or whatever, like if it's for you, you're not gonna say anything. But if it's for your little sister, we're gonna go ahead and say something. We're gonna let them know. We're gonna make sure she's taken care of, right? Like you summon the courage and you do it uncomfortable, you do it scared because your why, taking care of her, is bigger than your fear. Your why is bigger than your why not. Okay. So if it's just you and you're used to kind of disregarding your needs and shrinking, and you would prefer to not inconvenience someone than have your meal be correct, your why nots are bigger than your why. So you're not going to say anything. But when you are standing up for someone else, when you're taking care of someone else, and because we're conditioned and raised this way as women, all of a sudden, taking care of someone else gives you the courage to go ahead and say something. We're not going to get into like all the social conditioning because I don't have time for that. But my point is, like, we do things scared. We do things uncomfortable. We just need a big enough why. And I also have podcasts about that too, like finding your why and why that's so powerful. Because like your why needs to be bigger than your why not. It's literally convincing you to go ahead and do the thing because you're not gonna feel good first. You're not gonna feel we don't do things out of an overflow of confidence. We don't do things out of an overflow of security and like feeling good about ourselves, usually. Like you just do it. But then it's like the insecurity, the lack of confidence that holds us back sometimes. But it's like, I don't have a good like example for that, so I think I'm just gonna move on from that. Not, excuse me, not gonna get like too far into it. But so you can go ahead and do it scared. You don't have to feel any kind of way first, like you just do it. And then kind of coupled with that, start small. Start small. Okay, so if it is showing up online, right? If you never posted anything online ever, like you might start with a thread where it's just like basically a caption, it's just words, it's just your thoughts. Or even depending on how small we need to go, right? A quote from someone else. Um, I wish I remembered her name, but somebody on TikTok, she posted a TikTok where she was like, it's so important to choose like the size of the fear you're facing. And I think that that is so powerful. Okay, so like if you have a fear of being seen, right? And you have like a kind of a stage fright type thing and you don't want to like show up online, you don't want like people perceiving you. Your first step might not be to go like speak at a conference in front of thousands of people, right? Probably not going to go well. Like that's a little too aggressive. Like it's some exposure therapy could be powerful, but that is more likely to shut you down, right? So it's like where can that's why we say like start small. So where can you find something that is small enough to where you're still working through those feelings of being afraid and you're still building up the courage and you're still doing it scared anyway, but you're also likely to succeed. It's something that's doable. So it's stretching you, not breaking you, right? So that might be to post a selfie or a lip sync video or whatever until you're like building up to the point of wherever you want to be, whether that's speaking in front of a camera or like this, that, or the other, or maybe it is getting on that stage, right? So think of what is going to stretch you but not break you and start small because the psychology behind it is like you want something that you can succeed at. So it's still scary, right? If you go ahead and do something that you do all the time and it's like you don't even have to think about it, then that's not really building that muscle. It's not really helping you work up to anything because it's irrelevant. Like you're just, you don't care. So you want something that's big enough for you to care and to still be scared and still have to work through it because that is the growth process of like actually working through it. And then but you also want something that's not so big where you're likely to fail and shut down and no, right? So choose something small that will stretch you and not break you. And then know you're gonna fail. Like, hopefully not the first time, right? Because you want to start small, but it's like along this journey, not everything is going to go the way that you want it to go. Things are not going to work out all the time. There are going to be things, there are going to be stumbling blocks, there's going to be times where you drop the ball, there's going to be times when people criticize you and they're not wrong. Those are normal. That is part of life. Like when a baby is learning to walk and they fall down, you freak out like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna learn how to walk. Oh, this is a tragedy. Like, stop the world. The baby fell down. They might as well give up. Like, why are they even trying? Like, they fell. They fell down. So just stop. Stop everything. Like, no, like we know that falling down is part of the process, that falling down is normal. And as long as they don't hit their head too hard, like inconsequential, it's fine. They fall down. It's all part of it. So, how powerful is it when you can let yourself fall down and be like, yeah, I'm doing it. This is part of it. You're gonna fall down, and that's okay. It's literally just like a side effect of learning something new. Okay? So, to wrap up, right? Like, there is not some like magic intrinsic thing that other people have that you don't have. You can do the things you want to do. I'm so encouraging you to do the things you want to do because doing things that light us up and make us feel alive brightens the entire world. Okay, we are in a crisis of people going through lives like they're zombies, okay? And we need people who want to be here and who are actually living their lives and not just going through the motions. Okay. And if you need proof of that, find somebody who's the most alivest person you know and observe how much of a light they are. Okay. I want you to be a light as well, because that's how we brighten a dark world. Okay. So they don't have something that you don't have. It's hard. You just do it anyway. You don't have to feel confident before you do it. You can do it scared. Okay. So you're going to do it scared and you're going to start small with something that's going to stretch you, not break you. And then you're going to know that you're going to fail. You're going to fall down. And that's okay. That is a totally normal part of the process. Okay. So I would love to hear what you're going to try, what you're excited about. Yeah, you're gonna be amazing. Like, I'm so excited. So let me know what that is. You can reach out to me on socials at the Fierce Framework, or you can email me at confidence@thefierceframework.net. Whatever, leave a comment on this video, like whatever you want to do. I'm rooting for you, and I'm so proud of you. And I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me on this past episode of the Fierce Framework, where we talk about becoming fierce through taking a messy action, baby steps, and growing your confidence. I'm your host, Mary Beth. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you got a lot out of the episode. If you're looking for a little bit more, make sure that you are subscribed to my newsletter. I drop a new email every week. I'm also on social media platforms at The Fierce Framework, and I do have some coaching spots opening up. So if that's something you're interested in, you want to connect on that, feel free to drop me a DM or check out the link that I've included in the description. I can't wait to see you next time, and until then, keep becoming fierce.